I think you're right about the extent to which the hostage crisis, and again, it's now, further away from us in history than the fall of the Berlin Wall, which seems like that happened ages ago. Yet for some reason, it really burned itself into the American narrative on Iran, so that people who weren't even alive at the time of the '79 events somehow react to them. And then, of course, the point about immigrants, and particularly people who are refugees from the regime, coming over and then being essentially being held accountable for what was happening in Iran by people who said, "Well, you're the same as the people over there," and sort of from the frying pan into the fire. But as you said, then of course, what's happened is that the diaspora has developed, and going back to this point about cultural products and exchange, I mean, you have a reasonably robust Iranian American presence, both and certainly the production of things in the media, music, film, items, and now that with the ability to transmit this over social media, you have you saw how Iranians in Iran embraced Anousheh Ansari as an astronaut, and of course she paid homage to her Iranian roots by bringing the Iranian flag with her, as well as the American one on her spacesuit. So is there a sense that the Iranian American community is one of these points of conduits in Iran, and how do Iranians react to the Iranian Americans? Is there a sense of you're part of us and you can tell our story? Do some people say, well, you and your family's left, so good riddance to you, you're not with us anymore? I mean, what's your sense of how that connects in the relationship between the Iranian American community and Iran?
That is such a great point, Nicholas, and I'm glad you're asking that. It's so interesting. It's quite fascinating. Unlike other diasporas, the sort of Chinese American or Indian American, Iranian Americans have not done well, and I'm very vocal about this. Quite frankly, when I did this book, the Iranian American community was like, oh, I mean, like, oh, I mean, everyone else, everyone was so excited. I had incredible reception, and Iranian Americans tend to be so centered. And again, I can say this because it's, I know them, and I'm part of the diaspora. They are, yes, you have the Anousheh Ansaris who do acts as such, which are incredible, and more power to her. But collectively, they are not united. They try to stay away from political issues because so many of them, belong to, the royalist camps. They're old school, and they're pro-Shah. Then you have the, other people who are, not pro-Shah, but they're anti-regime, and they, support that. Then you have, other people who do that. So somehow, so many people in the diaspora are stuck with their own political ideologies and mentalities, entwined with their own struggles of living life as immigrants in the U.S. That they don't connect with people in Iran. Iranians inside the country, quite frankly, are not waiting for the diaspora to help them or save them or do anything for them, because they're not connected and they're not united and unified. I mean, quite frankly, even in a basic protest about a very basic human rights issue, Iranians are at each other's throats on the streets in New York or Los Angeles. So, you can just imagine what a joke they are to Iranians in Iran. And again, obviously there are exceptions. There are, people who are better than others and whatnot. But there's this general lack of rapport, I should say, between the diaspora and those in Iran. Again, mind you, that Iranian Americans and Iranian diaspora is so careful, walking this line. We're not that Iranian. So if we want to get a business deal, or if we want to, do something that may be jeopardized because of our Iranian background, then, they're not Iranian. Or even this whole thing about, Persian and Iranian. I don't even know. I hate getting involved in that, because I'm from Iran. I'm Iranian. And yes, I have a Persian culture and I celebrate it and so on. And, the diaspora, some of the people who don't even say I'm Iranian, because Iran is a political,
Mm.
is associated politically. And I can understand that. Listen, I get it. I was in Chicago coming to New York, and I went to the bookstore in the airport. And I want to ask the girl, American girl, do you have the heartbeat of Iran? And actually, I felt a little bit nervous saying Iran. Isn't that crazy that I felt a little bit of nervousness? And I'm being
Yes.
very open, right? And me, I was like, oh, is she gonna think like, oh, is it like a book on terrorism, or it's like, and why should I be ashamed or nervous about saying I'm Iranian, Tatiana, and I live in New York City? Because I don't want to be confronted with this question that you may have. Oh, did you escape a revolution? Or, oh my God, can you, do this or that? All these negative stereotypes that we always have to confront and address, I think, are part of this resentment of the diaspora owning their heritage and Iranian identity.
I'm just going to throw back to you. I think that's old school thinking. I don't think Gen Z cares or knows about the hostage crisis. And I think that they are very different. And I think we'll go back to that question, but because I love Gen Z.
But I want to come back to that. Can I respond to that though?
Oh, yeah.
I want to come back to that. You're totally right. I agree with you. I think Gen Z in this country, doesn't know about, the hostage crisis, or, these narratives, these dark, gray, awful narratives are not embedded in their head. But what do they have instead? Here's the thing. What do they have instead? All they have on Iran is just, the nuclear talks, sound bites, the news. And precisely, again, this is why I did the book, because there's a void of alternative narratives on Iranian people, so that the Gen Zs that you're talking about, how are they going to connect to people in Iran? The young people in Iran, how are they going to connect with the current society that lives there right now? We're not talking about, people who left. We're not talking about old people who, are part of the previous, generation, but people now. So exactly to your point, I think not just about Iran, Tatiana, any country that has, a convoluted dark history should introduce new narratives to connect with the younger generation as to what's going on right now. And the young generation can, decide for itself.